Okay, moving on to agenda item 5 is to receive the minutes of the meetings of the planned subcommittees held on the 10th of June, 8th of July, 5th of August and the 19th of August. So I will just briefly go through each of these by page. If you've got any queries or questions, then please just stop me and we can go through and discuss whatever points you want to discuss. Okay, so the first minutes there are from Monday the 10th of June. So page number 3, page number 4, page number 5, page number 6, and page number 7. Right, moving on to the next plan subcommittee that's held on Monday the 10th of June. Page number 8 and number 9. Monday the 8th of July, pages 10, 11 and 12. Monday the 5th of August, page 13, 14, 15. And then Monday the 19th of August, page 16 and 17. Those. Takes us on to agenda item 6, which is the action tracker, which I think we'll just go through briefly and just give updates of where we currently stand. So the first one on the action tracker, as we can see there, is the planters damage. So there's a request for the planters to be fixed. I think that Councillor Jones was concerned about the damage that was going on there. I think that's still an ongoing issue with CBC at the moment, isn't it? Still outstanding.
So the repairs, so the Rangers organised with the company that's installed them some free repairs where they could be repaired. But they also noted that there were about 6 to 8 planters that they felt could do with replacing. So we passed that information on to Central Bedfordshire Council, but they're Central Bedfordshire Council assets. So we've done all we can do. It's up to Central Bedfordshire Council now to decide whether they want to move forward. In which case they replaced an order and replaced them with a company that provided them originally. So that's in their hands.
Yeah, so that's currently ongoing. Oh yeah, sorry, Councillor Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not on this committee, but I have a comment to make there.
Okay.
But when they are replaced and they're filled with earth, perhaps those that fill them, I don't know if it will be us or whether it will be CBC contractors, but that they should remember that the earth will settle. And we've had, as far as I can see, certain problems when it comes to planting plants around the trees after a year or two of settlement, that you have to have a plant growing at least a foot or 2 feet high to get them over the edge. And I think that the original planters didn't really know what they were doing. So hopefully it will be better this time round.
Okay, let's make that sort of.
I'm happy to raise that with CBC so that they raise it with their contractor when they ask their contractor to replace, if they ask their contractor to replace anything.
That's fine.
Thank you. John, I was just going to, have we had conversation? I know we understand we have had conversation with CBC to actually take over looking after the plant. In terms of replacing them, once they're damaged, would it not be a good idea, just a suggestion, that we actually take over, put in, many people don't like this rusty plant, whatever we call them. Is there a way looking forward now, thinking, is this something we can change in the future as they get damaged and we replace them with something better that will actually allow the trees or the plant to look much better than this rusty, nasty stuff? Oh.
We maintain these planters under contract until the end of this financial year, up to the end of March 2025. We're waiting for Central Bedfordshire Council to give us a steer as to whether or not they want to continue with that contract or not. If we do continue with that contract, that's a point for us to have that discussion with them.
Yeah, I would then, I will make a suggestion that CBC councillor start lobbying CVC. They are across the way from Dunstable. I think Comborn and CVC councillors in Central Bay to start thinking about what Dunstable would look like, and if it's better for us to take care of those things and replace them appropriately and be contracted by this council to ensure that we have the right plans in the town.
To make sure then that CBC councillors are aware of that and can lobby that.
Yeah.
That's Matt.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. Could we take that on board and
I think we can, yeah.
see? Okay, good. See what can be done. Make sure we can get that managed properly. Okay, moving on to the next one. Allotment land at each of the recreation grounds to consider the opportunities to development allotment land at each of the grounds. So that's the process of commencing April 2024. I believe that's an ongoing point.
That will be part of the programme, Chair, to look at management plans for all the recreation grounds. That's the opportunity that we have there.
Next one's for the action track. I think that's sort of the same, isn't it? That's what we talked about before.
Yeah, we seem to have two similar items on the action track, Chair. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, the Close Cemetery Churchyard, there was members requested a future report on the Close Cemetery Churchyard and Priory with the Dunstable Council to maintain and to understand how that was done. So the report's been produced on the agenda, so that's now something to go ahead. We're going to update you on that. Green Spaces projects, the office has explored the option to install a defibrillator in the phone kiosk. I think again that's going to be covered later on tonight, so we've got an update on that as well, where we currently stand with it. Mental Recreation Ground, that's just the matting, so that's an ongoing situation as well. Bennett's Rec, Councillor Hollett requested the selling items in Priory in the shop. It's in the Priory house is undergoing refurbishment, reconstruction, and you know that's been an ongoing issue now, which has been taken up. So verbal updates can be given up in this meeting, I believe.
Laura may have a response for you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, so whilst the splash season was kind of in its peak, we actually had splash pad specific items in our display cabinet that we were kind of hoping to push selling. Now that that isn't the issue, I've spoken to, or sent a message to Lisa over at Priory to try and get some items in for us to actually be able to start working together on that one. So it's in process at the moment.
There's the Bennett's Rec also was about the signage for the car park. I think there's a bit of questions with what the signage was, whether it's clear and things like that. I think we've established now that we think that's adequate. So that's now in a complete state because we just wanted to make sure that parking for our residents and things is being tracked properly, and people want parking everywhere causing nuisance to residents. So I think from the feedback that I've heard, it's pretty much under control. It's been well managed. So I think that's alleviated those concerns. Next item was for the allotments. A request was made to investigate the upkeep of the grass entrance of the allotments due to overgrowth, which I believe has been cut back and it's managed and back to normal. So that's now complete. Allotments again, I think Councillor Brennan raised about the tone of the letter that was going out to remind people of upkeep of allotments, which I think has now been addressed as well, and some good feedback on that's come of that. So that's now a completed item. And finally, the sports pitches and general grounds maintenance. There was a members discussed the no-mow lawn areas of the council's recreation grounds and how well it could be distributed in future, so the understanding and what the expectations of people were around that. So it looks like at the start of the next cutting grass season 2025, we're going to make use of social media to make sure that's promoted out, so people's expectations are met in that regard. So they don't think it's more of an untidy thing, it's part of a managed thing that we're actually doing as part of responsible for our maintenance. Okay, I think that's our action tracker. Okay, so that takes us on to the Bennett Splash update report, which I believe that Lauren, you're going to take us through.
Indeed, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. So, Splash has been good this summer. So, despite the fact that we've had, I've heard one of the rainiest summers in the last 10 years, we actually did have some really good days and some few good weeks, which we really benefited from, which is fantastic. Sadly, we have been the victim of a bit of vandalism. Our extractor fan vent on the roof has been kicked off on a number of occasions. So we are looking into trying to get some form of protective caging around that, just to bit of a sort of short-term expenditure, but hopefully save us in the long run. And now that we are reaching the time of the year where we are sharing space with the footballers with the change of facilities, we're finding that we are having to try and explore alternative storage solutions as well. So throughout the summer we use the changing rooms, however that's not feasible now. So yeah, trying to look for alternative storage solutions currently. It's been a good summer. We've not really had any issues with the splash park and the plant room itself that's caused us to close or anything like that, which has been fantastic. A couple of minor issues with a fuse, but that was easily managed, quickly resolved, which was wonderful. We've welcomed a variety of groups at the splash park this summer, which has been fantastic to see. We've had work experience in, we've had beavers groups, we've had lots of schools coming in, which has been fantastic to see. So yeah, which has been fantastic. Hopefully we can aim to get these groups in again on a bit of a bigger scale moving forwards, which is fantastic. Moving forwards through the off season, we are going to aim to keep the cafe open Wednesday through till Sunday, so which is going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. We've got quite a few groups to cater for in that time as well. So with regards to parking, we've had a good summer. It's all good. It's all good positive. We've had a good summer. We've not had many issues at all. We've not had anything directly come through to us either with regards to parking issues. The few that we have, I have spoken to the Central Beds Parking Enforcement Manager already. We're keeping in quite close contact. She has put forward the suggestion of a seasonal parking restriction for Bennett's Close. So that's, don't know if everybody knows, it's the one just behind the splash park. They tend to get, I think, the brunt of it, where people park down the narrow road, which can cause a bit of, they can cause some issues for if they knew we needed to get any emergency service vehicles behind there. But yeah, speaking to Central Beds, they think that perhaps, yeah, a seasonal parking restriction might be the best way to go. So it'll mean that we'll only have a parking restriction there, like a single yellow line from May through till September. So then residents won't be affected by it in the off season if they've got visitors and things like that. So hopefully it will just help them out, which we hopefully we can explore. That would be quite a, we think, the best solution. So moving forwards with what we're aiming to kind of utilise the cafe for now. So based around the desire of creating a real community hub, we've decided to go with a bit of a rebranding with a cafe. So I've gone for Bennett's Cafe and Community Hub. Hopefully you can see in front of you there, we had a couple of ideas for logos to go for. We've kept the format the same font and format as the splash park, so it's easily recognisable for members of the public, so they can easily put the two together and see that it's been a bit of a transformation rather than an entirely new thing. Yep, so far we've already got Grove Corner are hosting a youth cafe session there. So every Friday for 2 hours, they've hired the space out so they can run a lot of their detached work from there. And I think the aim is then to develop that detached youth work into like a youth cafe type thing where they can even hopefully, fingers crossed, start to provide some life skills and really get the young people involved in taking a bit of ownership over that space during that time. We've got Opal Arts as a local art provider coming in on a Saturday morning to deliver an art club session, which is fantastic. Still in talks of getting hopefully a yoga session in, and alongside that we're running our own initiatives as well. So we've still got our knit and natter sessions running. We're looking at having coffee mornings in, older people's coffee mornings, potentially linking our board game session that we're getting up and running as of this Friday with an older people's breakfast club to kind of run alongside the fact that we have lunch clubs already within the council. So yeah, lots of hopefully very exciting things happening at the Splash Park or the community hub as it now is. And then lastly, just looking at the little income and expenditure we've got there. So just our takings in comparison to last year, at the point of the report being written, looking fantastic compared to last year. So as you can see, we started off with that kind of bit of colder weather at the beginning where we were perhaps struggling to keep up with last year a little bit, but we've had some fantastic weeks through the summer. I think we've had some of our highest income weeks since the Splash Park has actually opened, which is lovely to see. And yeah, finishing strong, and yeah, on a higher income than we were last year. So hopefully that's a trend we can continue going forwards. With regards to that, due to looking at the performance of this year, trying to improve that on that next year, and some of the feedback that we've actually had through the season as well about how affordable our prices have been and how beneficial that has been to members of the public when it comes to having a day out with their families. We'll have a little review on our pricing, see if there's any areas where we are perhaps underselling ourselves, and hopefully improve on our financials for next year. But that's all from me.
Thank you very much. That's a really good report. Well done. Can we open questions up now to the room? I think we've got first on this is Councillor Brenner.
Thank you, Chair. Lauren, I just want to say to start with, I think since you started, done an amazing job. I've literally had first comments that I've had about Bennett Splash and that it's doing really well. So thank you for that. I know the last time I spoke to you, the whole time I just kept throwing really stupid ideas in there. But, if I could suggest at Christmas time, like from what happened when we had the tea rooms using the area and the way that it looked, I think a Santa's grotto would be a really good idea.
Yes.
Within it, you could segregate it. It'd be really good.
It's something I've approached a company about already. So looking at the idea of a Santa's grotto, yeah, it's definitely something that I'm looking at on the cards to try and again encourage just a bit more use of that area and bring something for Dunstable to the cafe. So.
Okay, Benham.
Thank you, Chair. Lauren, wow. First of all, just to go through, I mean, it's really sad that we've had people knocking off the, not an exhaust, is it? What's it called? Yeah, that's a really, really sad, but I know that you're looking into ways to kind of deter that activity from young people from going up there. Oh, it may not be young people, it could be anybody, but that is a shame. I guess it's to be expected in a location like that. With regards to the parking, item 4, residential parking update. So I'd had residents contact me from Bennett's Close, and I'd spoken to Central Bedfordshire Council, and I know that they told me that they're in regular contact with James, yourself and Paul Hodson. The street itself, I've been there a few times because I was in the area anyway, and it was totally restricted. There was cars parked all the way down the length of the road, and there was a bush growing into the road, and CBC did cut back the bush, which was good. But I'm really happy to hear that there's going to be hopefully a seasonal restriction, because it really does need it. The road is already so narrow, and the residents were struggling to get in and out of that road. So that's really good to see. And I'm really pleased, credit to CBC that they're working with you guys to minimise that disruption to the residents. I'm sure the residents will be very happy. With regards to the performance of the Splash Park Cafe, I think you've really underplayed how well you've done this season. I know that the end of school party went really, really well. I mean, I think it was like record numbers. On that day alone, the sales, I think, exceeded £2,000, if I'm correct. And
Yeah, it was,
like your innovative way of thinking and working and the ideas you've come up with, you deserve so much credit for that. It's really exciting. It's a really valuable asset to the community, and you're just making it even more valuable, rebranding it as that community hub, especially during the winter months, autumn, winter. Like, just well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Mark.
Thank you. I have to concur with what Mother Major said. Let's just say thank you to the team. Well done for the work that you've put in. It's an incredible achievement. I think about what we were discussing this a few months ago, and the difference that this report and what's happened already has really excited me. And I think there's obviously still more work to do in terms of what your plans are, but I think you've done an incredible job as a whole. And so obviously thanks to John and the chief executive, everybody really for doing this work. Just got a few questions for you. So in terms of the branding, I think it's incredible. I think I just absolutely love it. The idea is, of actually making it a community hub, just the branding of that and the statement that actually creates separating the cafe and actually creating a hub at the same time, community hub at the same time, and opening that hub for the community to use. And I think branding really makes a difference. And I commend you, for the idea. It's really, really good. Now, my question then is, in terms of you did say you gave all this idea in terms of what the space is going to be used for. Now, the question is, you also mentioned about Wednesday to Sunday. Mm-hmm. Is the Wednesday to Sunday just for us as a council to use the space for what we do as a cafe, or this is all around to the community and everything else? What then the follow-up question is, what happens from Tuesday to Sunday?
So the aim is to have it open as a cafe still, because I think the idea then of having that warm space, that safe space available to community, they can come in, sit and have a cup of tea, just that sort of welcome space. I think it's really important that it's there. So currently it's looking like on a Wednesday we have nothing booked in currently, so it's to be open as a cafe space on a Wednesday. Thursdays we have our toddler group running again, and we have a knit and natter session on a Thursday evening. So it's keeping the cafe open, making sure that those groups are accessible to the community. Fridays we have Grove Corner in with their detached youth work. So again, we'll have that cafe space open in the morning, and then it's being used as the youth cafe in the afternoon. Saturdays, currently we have an art group in on a Saturday morning, and then looking to keep it open as we sometimes have the footballers in on a Saturday as well. So again, so they can come and use, and trying to make sure that we've got drinks and things available in the cafe that will be beneficial to them as a user group, and the same for a Sunday morning. The aim around that then is for Mondays and Tuesdays, the space is hireable. So, and also in the evenings, so if open, so we're open 10 till 4. So from 4:30 until 8:30, the space is hireable for community groups, committees, if they want to have committee meetings, board meetings. It's that space is there. Kids parties, we're really going to push advertisement.
Monday and Tuesday.
Mondays, Tuesdays, and then evenings across the week.
Okay.
Yeah. The view is to see how we go. This is obviously the first time we started using this space like this. So this is our initial plan of action. Let's take this, see how we're working with it, and if we need to make amendments, then the scope is there to do so.
I think it's incredible. But in terms of that vision, just casting, just casting the idea forward, then do you think if you are able to fulfill some of this vision and ideas that you have, that will make a massive difference in the numbers? Because ultimately, I know this is a charitable organization. It's not about making money, but if we can see the whole system actually pay for itself, if that's possible, is that something that you foresee?
Yeah, so we're hoping so. So we've got so obviously we're charging for the hire of the space. We've got 2 different costings. So we've got like a general hire per hour fee, and then a reduced rate for communities as well, so that we are trying to still encourage that community aspect and make sure that if there's any charitable organisations, they're not having to pay out as much to use that space. Like, we're trying to make sure there's that differentiation. But yeah, it's
it's going to be a year of testing and trying things. So we're trying to keep things quite fluid and trying to keep it open as a cafe. So tap into the football players. We open it as a cafe. People can see that they have somewhere to go. Then also give an opportunity to have that mix between the community hub aspect, but also, like quite rightly, it's got to pay for itself. So we get some party bookings in and run it as a business. So it's trying to do all 3 of those. And if we need to tweak things here and there, we can. It might be that we're open as a cafe on Wednesday. We take a booking, then we'll take a booking. We'll say, look, unfortunately, we're open today because we want to take those bookings and things. So we're going to be quite fluid with it, but that is certainly the plan is that we will be paying for itself. So it's not.
Yeah.
Can I thank you? So it's been incredible. Difference has been made. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, I just want to come back in because I know also something else that you're not singing your own praises at all. I know for certain that on the day that it was really, really busy, without being asked, you stayed open for an extra 2 hours to maximise the income of the busy day that you had. You are so flexible. You and your team are so flexible and forward thinking, exactly what that space needed. And I just think you deserve a round of applause. I'm just so taking something that made it our own, but not just your own, but made it something really for the community. You're looking at doing yoga and the variety of activities that you've introduced there, the parent and toddler groups, the knit and that, the warm spaces, the older people's coffee mornings. It's becoming a really attractive asset and outlet for people to visit. So you really deserve you just deserve loads of.
What Lauren did very well is because they have the splash park is so weather driven, and we've had the coldest summer on record, but so there's bad days, but like you're saying, when we had a good day, it's being in a position to maximise that incomes and being well stocked, got staffing in. But then, Lauren was like, we'll stay open because there's still lots of people in the parks. There's one providing that service, or they want to use the splash park, but then we'll maximise the income. And I think we did over £5,000, which having been there from the start, I know that's the highest that we've ever done in a week. So yeah, it's very good.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Night and day compared to last year. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I couldn't be done without the other areas of the council and having such a fantastic team around me as well. So kudos to everyone involved.
Is there any other questions from other members? No. I'd just like to say, Lauren, and just I don't know what people have said this, but you really do deserve the praise that you've got. I think you've been exemplary, and that's a word I would not use, but you have been, which is lovely, because all the ideas that you've brought up and the marketing, all the different uses you're going to use that space for has been absolutely superb. So you really do deserve all that credit and more besides. And I think it's an inspiration to us all about how you could pick something up and just change something so seasonal into such a success. It's going to be all year round. So, you know, that's something you shouldn't take lightly. So it's a certain quality of person that could only do that. So well done. Very well done.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, for all the members can actually look at the figures, you know, even though this has been a challenging summer, we've really been quite up there. So if nature had actually been a bit more palatable, this would have been a real record year. So I think it's it's a fantastic sense of achievement looking at those figures and the summer that we've had. You know, it really is an achievement. Personally, I think the parking issue it's an excellent suggestion about using the seasonal type thing, because obviously it's not going to be overrun during the winter time, even though we've got some yoga groups or whatever going on, but the real hot days is when we get the parking issues. So having a seasonal, it's fair and it's balanced to residents, and I think that's the superb way to go, to be honest with you. Obviously, you know, we have had the flu problem with the outlet being kicked on. I know it's happened a few times now.
Yeah.
So I've already discussed with John anyway, but you know, it'd be good to get a proper, you know, robust caging around it or something, even if it has to be bespoke. I know it's going to cost us, but it'll be cheaper in the long run, because you know, repairing these things is not cheap, is it? And even calling people in and doing so, it'd be a solution like a caging around it. It's going to be, or even a CCTV camera, you know, or something. It's probably going to be worth the initial outlay to save long term for this sort of damage to keep happening. And obviously it's an inconvenience to you and the staff and everyone else when it does as well. So it can affect trade. So hopefully that will get resolved soon. As for the branding, absolutely superb. You know, the ideas that you come up with. I have been asked as chair to get your views on the preferred ones here. I don't know what people prefer, but certainly my preference would be the one on the right hand side of the page. It really it catches your eye, it bounces out. It's a really fantastic. And again, was that from your own ideas, or?
That was a bit of a collaboration. So me and Rachel sat there for.
Really? Because honestly, that is something that you'd be hard to find with professionals to come up with, branding professionals to come up with something like that. It really is superb. So again, well done. So, but you know, this is something we need to carry forward now. Obviously, we don't want people to be calling it Splash Park anymore. We've got to really push out that it's Bennett's Cafe and Community Hub, because that is so important in altering people's perceptions that it's just a cafe. And that will be, you know, that in parallel with the new activities you're putting on will be paramount to achieving that. So, no, excellent, well done.
Thank you.
What are people's views of the?
Sure, I absolutely love both of them. I like the fact that it's and community hub. I think that itself is absolutely a brilliant way of presenting it. The only when you look at logos and presentation of logos, first you read that is the logo that sort of sets out what the name is, but using the C as part of the cafe is really good, you know. But I don't know what day is. It's Monday. On a good day, I like that. I like the idea of that. But because it's Monday, Chair, I'll probably go with yourself, I think.
Thank you. You know, the first one, you know, it has a different color, the different green. I don't know if you'd incorporate that C into the second one.
I think it's the same thing, isn't it?
You know, there's a difference. Yeah, it's a light green.
I've got black and white. That's fine.
The lighter green in the background of the actual sea with the tree sort of.
Yeah, looking at that.
What color is this going to be? Is it going to be a green?
Green.
White green.
It's quite in keeping with the kind of park space.
Oh, it's a green. Okay, understand. All right, in that case, I like. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I like the one on the left hand side.
Okay, fine. Do we have any other opinions or? that people would like to express about the team, or?
I prefer the one on the right. I like the way that the sea, you know, the community in it makes the sea of the cafe. So that is my preference. It's a bit softer. I like that one, yes.
Do we have any views on that at all?
Let's vote.
The preference to go for the one on the right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, fine.
do it.
We'll move on with that then. Okay, so we'll move on now to item 8. The electric allotments, recreation and terms. I believe that Mary's going to take us through that one.
Good evening, members. The floral displays and the increased differential mowing have been particularly well received at the cemetery this year. We've had a lot of positive feedback. With regards to the future proposed new burial site, a Tier 3 groundwater risk assessment has now been forwarded to the EA, and in the near future we should receive some feedback with regards to their findings, and whether we'll be in a position to have the site licensed, or whether we'll have to put any mitigations into place. Members of the cemetery working group visited both Bearton and Aylesbury crematoriums today. I think that the visits were very beneficial, and members and officers have come away with some thought-provoking ideas for the future. Moving on to allotments, further allotment inspections took place in July, and there is some data in the report around those inspections. In line with the current allotment improvement plan, officers will be shortly installing 3 notice boards at Meadway, Westfield and Catchacre sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. It's very good. Okay, I believe we're going to go on to the recreation grounds part of it now, which do we spend? Yeah, I was going to, sorry. Do we have any questions? Yeah, Councillor Brennan.
Just a quick question, Mary. About the report, do we know when the environmental agency, when we might expect a reply from them?
So the report is forwarded to them. They then have to provide a quote for how long it will take them to look at the report. Once they've decided and we've raised an order, then they will then look at the report. We are quite fortunate, I believe, that in the office that the report is sent to, we could maybe at minimum expect to hear within 21 days, but it could be a bit longer.
Mary, very glad that that managed to happen in September. Very good timing going forward. The new city. That looks good.
Fingers is crossed for that now. Yeah, and you know, I will sort of say thanks very much for all the hard work that's gone into this, because it's not an easy thing, and the legislation that goes behind it and everything else, it's I think it's a bit complex, and the reports and everything you have to produce. So appreciation to the time and effort that's gone into you and the team as well. Okay, Madam Mayor, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to feedback on the visit of today. Obviously, there are the ongoing investigations into the land of the land that we've identified as a potential site. But still, you know, we've continued with looking at other cemeteries and various sites to get some ideas, and obviously compare notes and look at what we could do. And I was quite amazed at how much detail goes into the planning of the new site, and also the day-to-day running of that site. I was really taken to that, like literally we went through everything today with the inside crematorium, at the back end even, which I felt quite nervous about, but I felt like I was in good hands, and the rest of you, I felt quite pleased with that. So thank you for organising that visit today and for allowing us to gather that information and for us to be part of the working group and make better informed decisions. So thank you for that, that's all.
Anyone else that wants to make any comments or questions or anything? Yeah, I will echo that as well. It's a fantastic visit. It's well organised, and you know, I was actually blown away with it, to be honest with you. See, you know, what you could actually learn, and you know, you can see that level of detail behind the scenes, and obviously all of the you know, mechanics behind it and everything else as well. So it really makes you appreciate when you're actually at this level of designing the site and everything else, what goes into it and what needs to be taken into consideration. But it is great to be at that information gathering stage now, as we put it in at the original planning, rather than doing it retrospectively, which we all, you know, want to try and avoid, because it's very much more expensive to do things after you've built something. So yeah, I really do think we're going about it the right way here, and you know, it's all credit to John and the team and Matt getting the planning correct with all this, and the way we're going through the information gathering stage at the moment is probably the most important point, and actually building it, because we've got to make sure we get it right. So you know, there is, as you touched on, you know, there's an awful lot involved here. It's not to be taken lightly. Okay, so moving on then to the recreation grounds side of it. Demi, I believe you're going to do that.
Good evening, members. Since the last committee report in June, there haven't been any incident of vandalism to any of the play equipment. In terms of grass cutting, it's getting to the end, which means that all areas, including the long grass areas, will be cut, mowed and collected. The football season, 24-25 football season has been just commenced, with all pitches being prepared and all seasonal work line marking will be carried out. Following the approval of the purchase of an Isaac rider mower in June, the rider mower was ordered and since has been received and has been used extensively across the summer, across all sites. In terms of the two new Ford Ranger pickup, which has also been approved at the June committee, an order has been placed with an approximately 25 weeks lead time, which could mean that the Rangers will arrive just before end of this year. Any question around Sportages recreation grounds? In that case, I move on to town centre and town rangers. The floral displays were received once again, and they will be collected in the first week of October, just when we will be receiving the winter beddings, which means that end of September through October, quite an extensive planting work will be carried out across Dunstable. Green flag and Anglian bloom judging took place. The town council retained all for its green flag site, and you can see a picture in the report with all the flags and volunteers, including the town mayor, in the Priory Gardens. The town council has been approached by the Legend of the Bench charity via the town mayor and the local residents with a request of providing a place and with some foundation, and in return they would provide a free bench to the town which lit up in the night. This official unveiling took place on the 30th of August with many people in presence. The town ranger service completed over 53 jobs requests. These job requests came internal and externally, alongside with their jobs which they carry out routinely. Any question around town?
I'll just like to say, you know, obviously big congratulations here due for Green Flags. You know, it's another fantastic achievement. and John, Timmy, Kathy, and all the team, you know, and the grounds team as well. So hopefully they're well aware of our appreciation. But needs to be fed. Yeah, it's again, it's a fantastic achievement. Sorry, Demi, I did want to ask about the, should have asked before you skipped over that, the new mowers. What is the feedback from the grounds team about how they're performing? And
They find it very useful and helps their work immensely, especially the fact that they can collect the grass with it. And even more so during the autumn season when when it comes to leaf collection, and it also mulches the leaves, which helps with the breakdown. Yes.
In my question, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to spin the phrases again. So just 4.1, the town has looked amazing this summer and continues to look amazing. Actually, the flowers are still blooming, and thanks to the Dunstable Bloom volunteers that have helped. The green flags, obviously retaining the green flags is something to really be celebrated. So well done to everybody has helped us to do that. 4.3, obviously with the bench, which is a suicide prevention bench that is there to start conversations about mental health, to create really important conversations, but also to be a light in the dark for people that may find themselves in crisis. There are some helpline numbers on the bench. And I'm really happy that the team could make that happen very quickly. So thank you to Dimi, John, everybody involved in that. And yeah, just thanks to the Rangers, the feedback online on social media has been very positive. You know, they're doing some really good work in the town, improving some of those what's often are eyesores. And yeah, just thank you for helping us to all have more pride in the town. That's it, thank you.
do you have any more? Anybody else wants to make any comments or ask any questions? Or? We'll just say, reiterate that as well. The town managers do a fantastic job, and I gave John an example the other day of where there was literally rubbish around, cutting out parking off, and they were cleared up before he even reported it. So, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning or something, it's there and done and everything else. And I think we're in a position where that's there. We're expending the team as well, aren't we, soon? So, you know, but it's a superb service. So, yeah, so I think we move on to the next bit now. The Green Spaces project is Kathy. Are you going to be taking us through that one?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So the update on Priory Gardens Pergola and Neerail project. We can further report that scheduled monument consent has now been granted by Historic England, which we're delighted about. And the application that Friends of Priory House and Gardens submitted to the Awards for All Lottery Fund, unfortunately, they haven't been successful on this occasion. However, we know that funds are there to, within budget, see this project forward. And we are very much hoping that project works will start on this project around autumn 24, winter 25. And we will, of course, be making the public aware before any groundworks start to happen in terms of delivering the project. Any questions on this one? So the next project that we're working on is the Church Street phone box project. Officers had sought quotes for the refurbishment and further works on this project. However, our initial quotes have come in above the budget of 5,000. So at this time, we're seeking further quotes. And we are also working in partnership with the SADS charity, who and a local fundraiser who will be providing the defibrillator that will be installed in the phone box. And we will provide further updates at future committees on this project. Any questions on this project?
That's brilliant.
Okay, there is a company or a charity called London Hearts. Who do unilators for £660. I just thought it would be of interest. I received an email then from them previously as a CVC councillor that they do that. You can apply for it, and they so that might be something, might be an avenue as costs are quite high. Might be something to look into. London Hearts, it's called.
Yeah, thank you very much, councillor. That cost actually has been negated as we have been, that has been donated. That aspect of the project has already been donated by the SADS charity. So we're delighted about that. So it's really the refurb that's coming above budget, and the other aspects of the project that we'd like to deliver. So the interpretation board, everything's coming slightly above 5,000. So we're just going out to seek more quotes at the moment, see if we can sort of get the costs down on that project. Yes.
Sorry, yeah, I had a question because I had thought from a previous meeting that we were getting a defibrillator donated.
That's correct.
And that is correct. We are getting one.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's good. Maybe the town rangers can do
What we need to do, members, is if we're going to take over this structure, which has already got a listing, it's important we do it properly and we do it really well. I think I know the rangers do a great job, but there is a little bit of specialist work involved. There's also the removal of some lead paint potentially, which is classed as a hazardous material. So we need to treat this very carefully and do it right. So I would rather that we used external contractors to do that, and that's where the costs come in. But we can play around the specification a little bit to see whether we can, pull back on some costs, which is really what we're looking to do now. So,
Okay, I agree. It's, although we want to do that, we want to make it a nice thing that we're all proud of, and might not sacrifice too much, but it's going to. I'm sure it's going to look special.
Thank you, Tim.
So, yes.
And on to Anglia in Bloom, and again we're delighted to announce that Dunstable have achieved a gold award again this year for in the large town category. It was attended on Friday by members of the awards ceremony was attended on Friday by members of Dunstable in Bloom, the Mayor and John. And we won a number of other awards as well. And again, the town has done really well, which we're all delighted about. Thank you.
Thanks. All questions?
Yeah, Anglia in Bloom. Wow, what a great day on Friday, and thank you to those that organised, lived up to Thetford. It was a great day, and well done to everybody involved in making sure that we got some amazing awards for Dunstable. But I also want to put on record that it was the first time that Houghton Regis entered this competition, and they did extremely well. So I just want to say, I've already told them, but congratulations to them. It was well deserved. It was a really good day, lots of celebration. So thank you.
Purpose result. One other thing I'll pick up on here is that, the under 5.5.8, which is the promotional film, was created by Bedfordshire College as well. So that's a nice touch that we've got the local element that's coming in. So and they're actually doing the video from the local college. So it's fantastic. We've got that as a community thing. So there's an added thing there. It's really nice.
one of the strongest points, members, from the feedback from the judges was our community spirit, which I think is really important. Whilst they were very complimentary about our open spaces and our floral displays and the environmental credentials, what shone through was the community spirit. And I can say that we actually scored very well in that aspect of the campaign. So that's credit to everybody involved. Just like that.
Yeah, thanks. Do you want to mention anything about the cemetery profile, Mary, or any of the costs that's on there, or the allotments waiting list, or anything? Comments you want to make on that?
No, just that we've got a positive overall variance of just over 40,000. And that's due to increased income in May, June and July. And then the data regarding the waiting list, I think is there, and it's quite simple. If anybody has any questions about it, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions of that, the figures that's been presented? That's good. Thank you, Mary and Kathy for those updates, and to Demi as well. Very good. Okay, so we move on to agenda item 9, which is maintenance of the Priory Churchyard information report, which I think John's going to take us through.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So you will recall from the action tracker, this was something that you'd asked for information on. So the report is here just for information. There's no decision for you to make this evening. Just a bit of background. We took on the maintenance of the churchyard under the 1972 Local Government Act provisions, which allows the Church of England churchyard to be passed over, offered over to local authorities to maintain. We have taken that decision in the past, I believe, sometime pre my time in 2009. So when I came here as your head of service, I inherited that. That's a role that we've been undertaking for some time. It includes routine maintenance of the churchyard, grass cutting, litter picking, leaf clearance, general management, tree management, and looking after or regularly inspecting some of the memorials that are on site. Every 5 years we get a quinquennial report from the Priory Church, which is prepared by the diocesan appointed architect, and that includes any aspects related to the churchyard, any observations that the architect might pick up. In the 2021 report, which was the last report that we got, there were no concerns in particular about any aspects of the churchyard, and the report actually said that the churchyard was generally well maintained. There were some minor observations about the brickwork boundary walls were generally in fair order, but noted some minor decay and bulging, but nothing to be concerned about at that stage. And I'm not aware that that is any worse than it was. We will get our next quinquennial report in 2026, so we'll see what that has to say then. On the matter of headstones, we have to go through the process of applying for a faculty for the Church of England to do the stability testing. That's the process that we're going through now, that Mary's been working on our behalf, and we will be inspecting those memorials very soon, and we'll make any necessary repairs that we have to make. The quinquennial report notes that rather than laying things down in the churchyard, they should be re-erected if they're unsafe. So if they're unstable, they should be taken down and then re-erected, because that represents the character of the churchyard, and it's important to retain that. There's regular inspection of all the trees, so that's picked up in the quinquennial report, and you have a tree risk management process in place for all of the trees on your estate, if you like, in the parks and open spaces. And then just to note that the lighting columns and the lamps are actually looked after by Central Bedfordshire Council. So there's a whole mix of arrangements going on there. But it works well, and the churchyard is part of the Green Flag Management Plan that we have for Priory Gardens. We include it in there as well. In terms of finances, there isn't any money in the reserve at the moment. You had to take the difficult decision to take that to fund some of the costs for Priory House, but you do have in your 5-year budget forecast a suggested contribution of 10,000 next year and 10,000 the year after. Sorry, 10,000 26-27 and 10,000 in 27-28. So that will put £20,000 back into the coffers. But there's, as I say, no immediate concern for large items, and if you can build that up, then that will help come that rainy day when you might need that some of that funding. And then the other financial aspect is that in a deal done with the church some time ago, we committed as a council to funding part of the cost of running the lighting that lights up the building. That was part of an initiative to improve the safety in the churchyard. That was the council's contribution. That cost us about £300 to £400 per annum towards the electricity bill. Maintenance of the churchyards in keeping with the corporate plan. We look after all the health and safety aspects associated with that as well. And we work very closely with the church where we need to. So I hope, members, that's useful. That's given you some information, and I'm happy to take any questions, not that I necessarily know what will be.
Thank you. I think my memory of this is correct. So I'm really pleased about the kind of comprehensive report, and in particular conclusion about the boundary wall. I think when we first spoke about this, I think one of the main issues was whether this was part of the included in our risk assessment, and the so for example, if we had to rebuild or take responsibility for that boundary wall, whether there was sufficient reserves or set aside for it. So it's probably implicit in what you've said, but presumably we've had an estimate for how much it would be to try to replace any of that wall should it collapse, and that the 10,000 forecast would be sufficient to cover that after 2026 if we had to do some work on it.
We haven't had an estimate because it's a very extensive length of wall that runs along Church Street and then returns back towards the church, up Church Close. And it would be impossible to say. It depends entirely on the amount of work that's required and the sort of work that's required. So we're saying an initial £10,000 now, but we'll know more when we get the quinquennial report. And it's a case of building up, funding. But I would say we would be looking in excess of probably 50,000 in future years if it became necessary. So if you start to build up the pot now, that will help. But of course, we would come back to members if there was something more urgent and there was a more urgent need.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, thanks for that, John. I agree that, we've got things like boundary walls. It is quite a big wall, and it's quite expensive, as you say. So it makes sense to try and look at building up some funds, even though it's a bit down the line. We don't want to be hit with a massive expense and then realise we've got a hole in the budget, we can't fill that. So it makes sense to, even though we've got an estimate, try and put some by, because this is going to need doing at some stage. I think that's item 9 covered. So we move on now to item 10, which is the French's Avenue footpath. And I believe Demi is going to be taking us through that one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I may give some background information about this project, because that goes back almost 2 years now. Initially, members asked officers to seek some quotation to create a link path between the motorcycle inhibitor, which was installed at that time, and the existing circular path. As part of the quotations, officers thought we felt that it might be worth considering getting quotations to refurbish or replace the existing circular path, which we received quotations, which were presented to members and voted on. However, at the time of the site meeting, following the appointment of the successful company, it became apparent that their quotation wasn't based on actual site visit prior to it. And because of that, they were not able to hold the price which was originally provided. And they had to provide a new price, as well as officers sought another 2 different prices from 2 different companies to ensure that the new price is accurate, which members can see in Appendix 1. The originally £22,000 was approved for the both project, the refurbishment or replacement of the existing circular path and the new link path. Out of the £22,000, £11,723 would have been from a developer's contribution, and another £10,277 from Open Space Improvement Plan reserve, which would take the reserve, Open Space Improvement Reserve, so £17,788. As you see, the difference with the new prices is £11,960, which if would be get approved by members, would take the Open Space Improvement Plan reserve to £5,828. I think, if I may say, the question is really whether members decide to go for both projects. They can decide going for both, go just either of them, or defer it for later. I'm very happy to take questions on it, and if members happy to discuss it, what option they would prefer.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but we will take options on that. Just as to give a bit of a steer from chair position, as members will remember, obviously this is coming out of the same budget as we're using for the Picola project. Which I understand from the update from Cathy now, we know we haven't got that particular grant. Is that correct?
That's correct. So you will need all of the money
Yeah.
that you've set aside for the pergola from that reserve. For
Yes.
that project.
So we need to consider, before obviously when we took these figures and we agreed the 22,000, that was at that stage we didn't know we was going to get that grant or not. So we've now got that confirmed. Although we're happy we've got that money covered, it's still coming out of the same pot.
Yeah.
And I will say I'm not sure how this happened or what they did, but it does seem quite strange how we've got a quotation which is so far out. And I think it's very unfortunate that they've quoted like that. We're not talking a few thousand here, so it is quite a substantial amount. So, before we start discussing this around the table, I really do want to draw your attention to that. And obviously what we've got to really decide on as part of the discussions is, do we do the whole thing now, or do we do I think everyone's in agreement that the link path is the important part, because that's the one that's going to be really needed by the public and things. The circular path is, an added benefit. So do we say now that we just do the link path and we defer or cancel the circular path? We have a decision, obviously, we need to make a decision on it by way of vote. But we do need to take in consideration the reserve money and everything that's been considered. But it is quite a substantial increase in what was originally quoted to what we are now. So I think we need to be responsible when we're thinking about that decision. Okay, take questions, I think. I don't know what's first.
I think first of all, it's a shame that there is a difference because there wasn't a site visit when they provided the quotation. But, that it's happened. I guess we just have to move past that. I am nervous about the reserve only being left with a balance of 5,828, and that will be until the new budget next year.
Mm-hmm.
So that does make me nervous, but at the same time, I do feel that that part of town needs that kind of investment. So personally, it sounds like it's going to take a lot of officer time to kind of start from the beginning again, look at new quotes or different ways to do those paths. And I think we all agreed that the type of materials to be used and them being sustainable and the longevity of them was good. So yeah, whilst it makes me nervous that we'd only leave 5,828 in the pot, my instinct is that I think we should just go ahead. Personally, that's my own take, because we seem to do a lot in the centre of town, but I think we need to also look at the north of the town as well. That's my.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask for clarification. So the quote that we're going we're proposing to move forward with is with the same company that's put us into this position in the
No,
first place.
No,
It's not.
I
just wanted to be
asked
clear
that the
about
other
that.
day.
No, that's
because I was very
That's
comfortable
fine.
with
I
that.
just wanted to be clear.
But,
That was
because otherwise we might get the same problem.
yeah. Okay. So we're going with a different
So-
company entirely.
it would be
It would be. okay.
either way, members decide whether there's just both or one, it would be a separate company.
Okay, that's just helpful to know.
Yeah.
It is very difficult. It's a long time to go with a minimal budget in the reserve. We're talking 18 months, no longer, probably. Is that right? Between now and the following year?
April.
April next year.
So 25, okay.
Yeah. It's not long.
And, you know, we've got to consider, obviously, we haven't got this particular grant that's come in now, Pagoda, and the Pagoda project has increased substantially as it is anyway from what was originally there, so.
Yeah, the figures that you've got in front of you, though, take account of the fact that you've underwritten the full cost of the program, so that's included in these figures, so. The only way that you would eat further into that would be if there were increased costs around the pergola that we weren't aware of.
So
Yeah,
effectively, there is sufficient funds for
Fund
both
for this,
projects.
yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there are sufficient funds to be able to move forward with this project. The issue is that you may have concern about the level of funding that's left.
The reserve is going to be very minimal, and obviously we can't foresee exactly what's going to happen between now and April. That's all right.
Can I ask what our reserve commitments are in April for the open space reserve?
There's a small amount of money set aside for Bennett's, of just under £5,000. There's the pergola, and then there's this project.
So come April, when we do the new budget, what is the likely contribution that we will be making to that reserve then? So come April, what will the new reserve likely be? What do we normally?
My recollection
Space though.
My recollection of your 5-year forecast is that it's £20,000 into next year. But of course, when you're setting the budget, you have the opportunity to increase that should you wish to do it.
Personally, I think that I think a few things. One, we have to be mindful that for the 8 people sitting around this table are Dunstable North councillors. So we obviously have somewhat of a vested interest in this because it's our ward. But I do think that we're looking at the in the future of what each of the parks are going to need. We're going to be planning for that going ahead. So we're going to be doing reviews of all the parks in the future. This is an issue and the path is an issue that has been for some time. I am quite happy to support replacing the ring and path leading up to it, because we do kind of get forgotten in North, and I really want to push for more events in different areas of the town and in different parks in the town. And I think the more we do to improve the areas in the other parks as soon as possible, the better. So I will support the pathway and the link path being replaced.
John, do you have a personal opinion on how, you know, this feels to you?
Sure.
Sorry.
Thank you. I think it's two things that I just want to mention just to help us make a decision. I know you're going to take John's view on it, but Chair, you have to consider that this agenda has been going on for a very long time. I've had this conversation with John myself, possibly about 3 years ago, if I'm not, mistaken, possibly longer. on the different aspects of this. And I've had the same conversation since Jimmy came to the council. And I think when you consider, what most people have said about the north, it's almost a forgotten area of the town. I'm not saying everywhere else shouldn't get their first shot, but I think it's necessary now that especially when you consider the population of that area, they've not got a fair shot. And I think that it's time to get this fixed. We've got residents, making queries, just trying to walk through the park. It's a really difficult one. We have a lot of young people that use the area, families with pushchair that use the area. I think this is now time to commit to doing this, and I think it's not going to affect what's in the budget. This is just what we have left in the reserve. It's not like, okay, there's something that we have to leave if we want to do this. We're not leaving anything else to be able to fulfill this agenda. It's about fulfilling an agenda that's been on the book for a very long time. I've lobbied this for a very long time. I'm kindly, not to say, yes, we've got 4 people four councillors from the north, but beyond that, if I'm talking about the park across the road from me, I'll be lobbying exactly the same way. If somebody's been arguing for that park for a very long time and it's not been looked after. So, Chair, I think, if you would take my opinion, the people of that lives in that area will appreciate this committee tonight approving this to go forward to have both done.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kamal. Yeah, I do listen to what you're saying. I hear that completely. I like everyone. I think I'm a little bit torn, because I think as far as the link path is concerned, I think we're all absolutely 100% agreed on that. That goes for whatever. I think the real question here is if the circular path goes with it as well. But having, I'll take on board exactly what you say about, the north and how, we need to make sure that we invest in that area. And I agree with you completely with what you say on that. I think the only thing that's uncomfortable for me is the difference in what was originally quoted and what's really turned out. It's quite a considerable increase of, nearly £12,000. So, that's where I am torn, but I agree with you completely where we need to invest and I quite completely agree with you on that. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with everything that's been said, actually. I think it should be done. The money's there to be spent at the end of the day. However, my only question would be, with the variance in the original quotes, are we guaranteed it won't now exceed more than the 11,960 difference? It's not going to go above that again, is it?
No. Prior to these reports went out, I contacted all companies and made sure that they can support their prices, what they said, and they confirmed. And in the view was written this report.
Can I just ask that they did actually come out, these people to do?
Yes, because I met them on site. Yes, I did meet them on site. The company who provided the first price, which was the lowest, it's a reputable company. I was expecting them making a site visit before they quoted.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was myself a surprise.
Yeah, the difference in the price, I think, is really underlines that. But anyway, John, I'd like your opinions.
I'll give you my professional opinion,
Yeah.
not the personal opinion.
No.
But I think probably the first thing you need to remember is that the link path needs to link from the new motorcycle barrier from the road, the street. Yes, and it needs to link into the circular path.
Yeah.
And you're going to put a good stretch of link path in, and then it's going to get to a path that's not really fit for purpose. And the circular path is no longer fit for purpose in the way that it was. And I think we've learned some lessons there about how we manage and maintain those types of paths and their longevity. I think probably I would go with seeking members' approval to do both of these. and to manage the consequences of the impact on the open space improvement plan, but recognise it doesn't need the ability to do much in the next 6 months.
Thank you, John.
Although there are other options for doing things like other people's money, grants, so on and so forth, where those opportunities arise. And we've done some of that over the last few years.
No, thank you, John. I think it's useful for all members to, know that John would be comfortable with that as well. So, so with that, do we, with that position of where we are with the budgets and things like that, and are we in agreement then? Can we?
Yes.
Anyone have any more questions, by the way, before we do? Any more questions on that?
Just to touch on what you just said, actually, when you say other people's money, you mean like other external sources?
Yes.
Where we might
grant
have to
funding,
look
yes.
for more money and not the taxpayer, right? Yeah, that's my understood. Thank you, Jen.
I mean, they have stuff like section 106. It is about matter hacks in CVC, where those funding are, and digging them out. And also, if you look at this, part of this funding, section 106, from the Freshens Avenue area as well. So, you're using this money that's been accumulated from that area back in. And I think this is, and some of this money, I actually find that some of this money was used somewhere else. So, hey, give some back to the way it came from. Be good.
I think it's been a useful debate. So with that, I mean, can we have a vote for everyone's happy with to do both the link path and the circular path? Yes. Yeah, okay, well, that's unanimous anyway, so. Let's go with that. Right, we now move on to item 11 on the agenda, which is the 40th anniversary celebrations, which I believe John Kenny is going to approve.
Thank you, Chair. You may have recognised, if any of you attended the Community Services Committee, I don't know if you did or you've read the papers, you'll see that each of the standing committees is receiving a report about opportunities for that committee and that service to put forward proposals for how to celebrate the council's 40th anniversary, which is from next year. It is a report for decision in as much as I've set out there 4 possible opportunities to undertake works to celebrate. The first one is to plant 40 sustainable climate resilient trees across Dunstable, either at various locations on Parkstone Spaces or in a single area yet to be determined during the period October 25 to March 26, which is within the anniversary year. And this could be done as an activity by the ground staff, or it could be turned into a volunteer community activity, which would be quite a nice way to celebrate. We've got good experience of planting trees. Kathy's built up quite a reputation for being able to do so with the community. The second one was to do something very simple, which was to develop a series of social media posts around 40 things that you could do to, for example, grow organically. It says 40 watts, it should say 40 ways there, my apologies. 40 ways to encourage wildlife into your garden. Very simple, easy thing to do. Regular posts going out on those sorts of things. The third one is to explore options to have a rose named after Dunstable or Dunstable Town Council. It's very popular with other local authorities. I was in Welwyn Garden City recently and they have a rose named Welwyn Garden City, which they plant extensively. And then the fourth option, or the fourth of the projects available to you, would be to naturalise 40,000 spring flowering bulbs across various locations across the town on the council's estates at the parks and open spaces rather than the branch. And that will undertake autumn 25 to flower in spring 26. I've given you some indicative costs there. Planting the 40 trees, £5,500 to £6,500, depending on types of plant species that you use. The rose named after Dunstable, that's a cost yet to be determined. And the issue there is it can take up to 2 years for that to happen. So whilst it's a lovely idea, it probably wouldn't fall within the anniversary year, but nonetheless, it's still worth considering. And then the third one there that would have a cost would be planting 40,000 bulbs. And again, depending on species and costs, we estimate around £8,000 to £10,000. So those are there for members to consider if they wish to do so. And then the decision would be members identify which of the initiatives outlined in section 3.2, if any, they would like to see included in the draft budget, because you will have to create additional funding for these projects. Happy to take questions or for you to discuss and debate, Chair.
Thank you, John. It's very worthwhile. I think, you know, we all realise that the 40th anniversaries don't come round that often. So, you know, we've got to do something quite special for our town and make an anniversary like this needs to be commemorated the right way. So, you know, there's some good suggestions there that's been filtered down. And, you know, we've got some good ideas regarding the costs. It's, you know, we'll discuss what people actually think and, you know, take a steer on your viewpoints. So I'll just open things up and go. I think Councillor Brennan was first. So,
thank you, Chair. I have one question, which is about the naming of a road. Is that so? The way I understand it is that is a worldwide thing. So, like, that is the name of that road, like, forever and a day. So, in 20 years' time, I won't be watching like our show, and there will be garden as well, and they'll be like, oh, this is the Dunstable Rose, or is that more localized sort of naming of a rose?
My understanding, and Timmy will correct me if I'm wrong, possibly, is that once the rose is named, then that's the variety of the rose. It's whether or not people will continue to grow that rose and, you know, propagate that rose in the future. That's something that we would need to understand.
Yes, so there is contacting the companies. There are many companies in the UK. One of them is David Austin. I contacted first, the way how they work, that every year they start breeding new varieties, and David Austin, who names them, having said that, they are accepting that some people make recommendation and they choose it. There is another company who also does it, but we would have more chance. So every year they start breeding new varieties, and that's get named. And as long as people growing them, then those are alive.
So is it? Can you make requests as to the sort of the details of the rose? Like, can you pick a colour of the rose, and can you?
Yes. So this is where it would come in the discussion. If members should decide that they would like to have going forward, then I would contact the company and have a firmer discussion around. My initial request was around whether it's possible, and if it's so, how long it takes, what information to get, how much might cost. And the feedback I received that it is possible, having said that it takes at minimum 2 years, because the first year around the testing and then the choosing the variety.
Okay, given those answers, my preference would be the 40 sustainable climate resilient trees. I think it has a better future, really. I think it has a better climate impact, ecological impact, biodiversity impact within the town. So from all these choices, I have the questions about rose, but from those answers, my choice would be the 40 sustainable trees.
Chair, can I just clarify that you don't have one, you can go for all four,
right.
of which one's got nil cost. You can go for 3, you can go for 2, you can go for 1.
Right, I was going to say, can you have like a hybrid sort of transaction? We could have a selection of some of each.
And that's for consideration in the budget setting process. Develop that commitment.
Thanks for that. Okay.
Councillor, yeah.
So I quite like I like the idea of the tree planting. I think the third one of them is quite impactful in terms of its kind of recognisable effect across the community. I wondered whether there might be a possibility of having a bit of both, and having, in the sense that it could be quite possible that someone would be happy to sponsor a tree. And so you could maybe combine these things, and maybe we could get, you know, some people to pay for some of the trees as well. I think that could be quite attractive, potentially. And maybe they could go in some of the, I mean, you probably had some idea about where the trees would go, but maybe they go in the different parks we've got, and people might be prepared to pay for a tree in the parks that are local to them as well. So that's just an observation and view. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's an interesting one that we could have a flavour of a few different right things here. That's definitely a consideration. Okay, Councillor tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. I think considering the answer from the Roses, I honestly think that is something that possibly not going to work. So I do also want to agree with the planting of tree. I think it has more sustainability element to it, and it's more of a statement. The town council are planting 40 trees across this town for the, you know, celebration of, you know, the 40 years anniversary, and these are where the trees are going to be. Or would you like to sponsor a tree? I think, you know, just thinking about the climate and what tree does and all this element, I think is a better option and better presentation for us. I'm thinking of an avenue that would love some trees planted in, a couple of trees in the north, and you know, I've lobbied CVC to plant some trees. We did plant a couple, but unfortunately they haven't finished the job. So there's some ideas, and also the idea of actually planting some trees in our park as part of this celebration would be a really good you know, thing to do. So I think the tree element would definitely have an impact.
Thanks for that. What we're going to say, if we planted some of these trees, it would have plaques with them to say it's part of the 40th anniversary, because obviously that makes it more long-standing with people's, you know.
I think that's something that we could consider. We could try and work that into the existing cost estimates. We'd have to look at that more carefully. And plaques don't always stay where you put them if they're pushed into the ground, so that's not always straightforward. I would just say of the three projects, the trees and the bulb planting sit very nicely with your new biodiversity policy. The trees for obvious reasons, the bulb planting for less obvious reasons, but for pollinating insects in the spring. And those insects are very important to our ecology and our biodiversity. I think Kathy would agree.
Okay, Madam.
Thank you. Apologies, I did pop to the ladies' room, so I missed a bit of it. But then I come back and I heard the word free. I saw that we got 3 options, but then there's actually 4, because one of them is free, being social media posts. I agree with everything that's been said so far. Whilst I'd love to see the 40,000 bulbs planted, I think given how our younger people engage with what we do and how they engage with social media, they might appreciate social media posts more. And I think the trees, 40 sustainable trees, would be much more fitting and have more longevity. But I just had a question. With the social media posts, I wondered if we might be able to pair that up with maybe packets of seeds that go out with the talk of the town, so that actually our people in the town could actually plant some seeds as well. I would say that that's maybe not a huge cost, but so it might be affordable. I wonder if it's something we could look into to celebrate to read packet of seeds. You know, that's a really terrible idea.
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
I think that's very good.
The only observation I would make with the seeds is that they're very good to engage people. So if it's about engaging people in worthwhile activity, especially if you're working with young people, absolutely great idea. In terms of impact on the environment, very little in the short term from one packet of seeds or numbers of packets of seeds. So you've got to kind of weigh the two up. But I think probably the community spirit associated with that outweighs the impact around biodiversity, but it does encourage people to think in the right way, which is what I think to do. Just an observation.
Yeah, and I agree with your point there, actually. That gives me something to think about. However, at the same time, I think the educational value that we could put out with the seeds, you know, especially like attracting bees, you know, we need bees to be able to survive. Human race won't survive without bees. So I think it could be a good tool to educate people. I don't know. I just also wanted to say that I walked through Grove Gardens the other day and I saw a few new trees have been planted, and that made me smile. And I thought that was really nice. So I think young people would appreciate the trees.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions or stage? No? I mean, I will just say to try and distill this down a little bit so we can actually make some choices. You know, my personal opinion is that I call three. I mean, it's lovely to have a rose named after Dunstable. I think we'd be extremely proud of that, and that's the national thing. But you've got to consider that wouldn't be staying in Dunstable, you know, and it's something that would, you know, what's the longevity of it, and there's a lot of questions there, and we haven't even determined what price it would be. So it's very hard to make a decision on something that's a big question mark on that. You know, talking of what's already been said and discussed, you know, and talking of the options that we've got, you know, are people interested in doing like a flavour of the two, like planting the trees and the bulbs? Because I know we touched on talking about the trees and the rose, but we haven't said much about the bulb planting. But that can bring an awful lot of colour year after year to our town. So it will be perhaps, you know, be amenable to bulb planting and trees and doing a bit of flavour of the because obviously the social media thing, I think, is pretty much a given because we can actually do that pretty much for free. And John was mentioning earlier about we could do the things with the 4 seasons. So, you know, you're not putting everything out at once to say there's 40 things you do in your garden and people only do 5. You could say here's 10 for spring, 10 for summer, 10 for autumn, winter, you know, and it gives people a bit of longevity throughout the year of rather than it all being a one-stop shop sort of thing. So what was people's opinions, Councillor Jamal?
I'm just going to say, I think it was 2 years ago. So we planted some bulbs just on, I think it's House and Parade. You know, I can't see any effect 2 years later. They see, you know, I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but you were talking about 40-year celebration. You want impact, and you want impact that you can see in 40 years' time. There's a tree that's been planted 40 years ago because Dunstable Town Council is still here 40 years later. This is a celebration of what happened 40 years ago. I think you would have more sustainability and longevity with a tree being planted and the bulb. You know, the rain comes, something happened, you know, the kick ball around there, and it's all over. You have to start again. I think you need that long time sustainability.
I think I'm just going to go for the bulb planted. They'd be in specific areas where they wouldn't.
Yeah, you would plant en masse. You might not plant in 40 locations. You might plant in a lot less locations, and you plant en masse and create an en masse type of effect. I think probably.
I think sort of one consideration is, you know, we do have, you know, is that obviously we have for the Jubilee and things like that, tree planting, you know, do we like to think about alternatives to keep it a bit more diverse and just tree planting, or what do we want to flavour the two, or trying to get together, Madam Mayor?
Just a really quick one. With the bulbs,
Okay.
would that last just 1 year or would that last?
No, you would purchase bulbs that you would naturalise into the grass, so that they'd come up year after year. So the way that you see the daffodils growing in Grover's Gardens every year, those aren't planted every year. Those are naturalised, so they come up every year. And it doesn't have to just be. It doesn't have to be just Definitely,
There-
it could be a mixture of other varieties.
Yeah,
Flower bulbs as well.
there are things that we could choose to make a combination of bulbs that we could actually plant underneath an avenue of trees that could look really gorgeous. So things like winter aconites and anemones and crocus, and they all are really good for pollinators, particularly because they flower early. And you could, they have quite a lot of impact colour wise, and a lot of those types of things naturalise in grass, as John said, and we can choose species, Narcissi as well, which are really good for pollinators if we did want to introduce some daffodils as well. But yeah, so depending on the types of bulbs that we chose, it could look quite impactful.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy, because that's another thing is colour. We've got to think about flowers give colour. Trees won't always give that impact. So if we want to try and have a balance here of a hybrid of choice, what I'm trying to say before,
The good thing about things like crocus as well is that they break down quite quickly because they're a smaller bulb. So they kind of break down in the grass faster than a daffodil does. So we could introduce something like that.
A quick question. So if, for example, that's good actually, thank you, because it's totally different. Say we were to all vote tonight that we want to consider the 40 trees, so we want to consider 3 of them. It then has to go to FGP. So
we would work up the costs in a bit more detail. We would then include them within your draft budget for you to consider and go through the normal budget process.
So it's not final.
Not final
Tonight,
decision
it's just-
tonight. You're giving us a steer that you want us to work up those projects and include them within the budget setting figures for you to consider further down the line.
Okay.
Could we find out more about the pricing of the roses named after Dunstable before we make a decision on whether it's a good idea or not?
it would have been nice to have had that information tonight, really, Debbie. How long would that take to get for us to find out how much the rose would be?
I can certainly contact and send out as soon as I have some information, hopefully shortly. If I give them a phone call, I'm sure they can give some indication of cost.
Yeah, I mean, one thing as I say we've got to consider is the rose would, if we're looking at the options, obviously the trees and the bulbs, that's going to bring colour to Dunstable residents, we know it is, where a rose would be up to people to plant or to whatever. We're not going to bring that beneficial aspect of the 40th anniversary to Dunstable town residents. So there's quite a bit of consideration here. It's not as simple as it looks on paper. So would we want to be in a position?
I can make a suggestion, Chair. If you would like officers to work up a bit more detail around each of those, bearing in mind these are just cost estimates. What I'm not getting the sense that you're filled with alarm at any of these suggestions, and we can feed that all into the budget setting process, and that's where you make your final decision. And I'm hearing, I think, that you like the idea of a combination of trees and bulbs, and there might be a way that we could present that where we plant 4 or 5 trees in a group and some bulbs as well. There might be a way of working up a slightly different project.
I think it's beneficial at the stage we look at all the options and take it to final stage, because it is an important decision. We want to make sure we get it right. So I think we can only do that once we've got all the costings involved, and if we could have that hybrid costed up as in a sensible solution, how that would be as well and how that would look, I think that would be a very good option that we'd probably go for. But let's get all the information and go from there. Councillor Smart.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My holy caution as we live this year is the fact that if this is going to come down to budget setting before it's finalized, flush out the costs, before you start adding that to the budget, can we not have a look and understand what the cost impact is going to be? Because when it comes to budget, now you're talking about tax, okay? And every councillor here would understand the impact that would have in any case. So my suggestion is to start thinking about the excitement is good, But think about the cost, okay? I think it's reasonable to plant 43 for 6,500, and that's the cap there. You know, if you want to plant, you know, some bulbs around it, you know, these two costs is exceeding £12,000 going down, you know, you're looking over £14,000. Now, we're getting down to the numbers. See, if you're going to plant 40,000 bulbs, including the trees, you're exceeding, you know.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think we're talking about a hybrid of both. We're not talking about doing both. It will probably, you know, might plant 30 trees or something and some bulbs or a combination thereof. The ratio, it could be decided upon. We don't have to go
It's impact.
100% of each.
We could present it as individual projects or as a combination of tree planting and bulb planting.
Okay.
So I think the best
And that would all square down to 40.
That's pretty.
Because we're talking about a 40-year celebration. So if you're putting 40 trees,
Yeah, it needs to be linked to 40.
it needs to be linked to 40.
Which is why we've suggested 40 trees, 40,000.
Okay.
Because 40 volts won't go anywhere.
Right.
400 volts is still not enough. So.
Exactly. So my you know, caution is to ensure that while we're excited about this, to think about the costs.
Yeah.
Because when you start doubling the cost, you know, what budget are we talking about? Are we going to exceed £10,000 to do this? Are we willing to go down to £15,000? Once it comes to the budget setting, now we're arguing about those numbers rather than agreeing the idea, specific ideas of number. Now to say, officers, this is the staring. We don't want to exceed £10,000, whatever you do, or we don't want to exceed £7,000. If you ask me, I said it should not exceed £7,000 at most. Okay, anything more than that is.
We'll let John do the granularity behind what the breakdown is and what we can actually do. And then I think that will help us to make a decision. I think that's probably the best way forward on that then.
So I just need to formally make a decision in line with the recommendation.
So can we make a recommendation that we allow John to go ahead and look at some hybrid examples of this and fully cost it, and then we can see what the true picture is and make the best decision for the town and the budget. Okay. Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Do I have a, so just to clarify, the recommendation is that we present you with specific costs for all three in the table of 3.3. We'll also present you with a hybrid cost, being able to do the tree planting, bulb planting together.
To be presented at the next grounds meeting.
Which will be first of a series of budget setting meetings.
Is that going to fit with the timescales that we've got? I mean, obviously, we're talking if we get the roads option anyway, but we'll be pushed for time. Are we
can still work.
Yes.
I mean, we won't be able to, if you do go with the roads option, you won't be able to deliver that until after the anniversary.
Yeah. We'll get, I think that's the way, we need to go.
Okay.
And,
that's a helpful step.
Get all the opinions and then we can see it all on paper exactly what's costed up and then make a decision on that.
Okay. Check everything, that's unanimous.
Yeah, are we all happy with that? Yeah, I think we're all happy with that. That's that item. Then we're going to move on to item 12, which is the sorting and gritting. And that's what is discussion report on that, which John is going to take us through again.
Thank you, Chair. It's become quite evident over the last kind of 18 months to 2 years that members have been asking what more we could do as an authority to be able to support what Central Bedfordshire Council did by way of gritting and sorting of paths and roadways. So this report really provides you with a bit of background as to what Central Bedfordshire Council do and what we currently do. Central Bedfordshire Council do winter road gritting. I've detailed that at 2.3.1 there. And in particular, they have their various priority routes. And there's plenty of information on their website about what they will and won't do. They say on their website that they have a local roads initiative where they work with town and parish councils. Some of the town and parish councils have delegated authority, Central Bedfordshire Council, to grip particular roads and roadways on their behalf. And that's not something we've ever discussed with them as officers or as members. That would need careful consideration. With regard to footways, the CBC website makes it quite clear that Central Bedfordshire Council don't grip footways and footpaths. They do state that they provide salt bins to town and parish councils, though as an officer, officers have never actually approached Central Bedfordshire Council to install any of those grip bins. And when you have a look on their website, you will see that there is a salt bin location checker. Go on and have a look at Dunstable. If you open up the whole map of Dunstable and count the number of bins that they've got located, there are some 24 bins. How those bins have got there, I don't know. They may have been bins that have been there historically for many years and have just been replaced. They may have been bins that you as councillors or CPC councillors have requested and they've been put in. But that's not something that's been done through officers. So we don't know yet what the mechanism is to be able to work that up with Central Bedfordshire Council, but they do seem to offer it as an option. Most of those bins are located in the east and southeast of town, which tend to be the slightly more hilly side of town, I think, probably. They also, as Central Bedfordshire Council, also operate a salt bag scheme for town and parish councils where they'll deliver either a 1 tonne or a half-tonne bag road de-icing salt free of charge once in December, once in January, and once in February. And delivery is limited to 1 unit per month over that 3-month period. With regard to that particular initiative, the Central Bedfordshire Council don't differentiate how much they'll give you based on the size of your population or the size of your community. So that offer is the same for a small parish as it is for a large town like Dunstable. With regard to what we do, we grid some of the key routes and paths through our parks and open spaces on a regular basis during frozen, icy conditions, and when we're clearing snow to prevent refreezing. We purchase that salt ourselves because that's for our estates, our parks and our open spaces. We have taken some of that salt that's been offered from Central Bedfordshire Council in the past, and we tended to use that for areas where they have a responsibility, but we need to do the gritting. So, for example, the square and Middle Road when we're holding markets, because it's in our interest to be able to hold those events in the safest possible conditions. I think all of the information that you need is there. What I don't know is what members' views are on what more the council could do. So you've got 2 recommendations to consider. One is to maintain the status quo, carry on as we are, and not do anything in particular other than what I've described in this report, and Central Bedfordshire Council will do what they do. The other is for members to provide an indication of what more they might like us to consider doing as a council in order that we can then go away and talk to the various officers at Central Bedfordshire Council about those options and those implications. And members may have no view or strong views or some views, and I think if you could share those, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think based on the report, Central Bedford is obviously very clear that, footpaths they would not touch. Unfortunately, most, when it's really high sea, the footpaths are more dangerous. Therefore, I think this council needs to consider how we can work with Central Bedford to make sure all of the footpaths, especially, I've seen many times in front of, where people just slipping and falling and stuff like that. You know, stuff like this still happen all the time. Friendships happen in footpaths, people falling all the time. I think if we can find a way, will CBC pay for this apart from just providing the source?
It's not clear from the information on their website as to how the schemes that they operate with the town and parish sector work. There's just mention of it, so we would need to go away and investigate that. That will help us understand the cost implications of anything that you might want to consider. But there seem to be two means of doing this. One is helping people help themselves with salt bins. The other is actually this council undertaking wholesale gritting works. Now, if you go with the latter, the cost implications could be quite considerable because you've got the cost of the grit and the salt, and you've also got the additional labour resource that's required to be able to do that. But I think those options could be looked at and understood in a bit more detail if that's what members would like to see us in the direction.
Sorry, can I just ask, John, just to clarify on that point about the ton bag of grit, would that be supplied for free?
That is actually free and doesn't go very far at all in a town like Dunstable.
Yeah.
So in that case, then I think the safety of our people is obviously really important. You know, consider we want everybody to walk to town. You know, we have to consider the footpath. Can we see if we can, you know, speak to CBC to figure out the best way? What are the town council we contracted to take care of the footpath, because they, you know, actually not going to take responsibility for the footpath, and you know, in the winter time and when it's icy, you know, right in front of your house it's okay, but once you stretch away from the right in front of your house, what happened then? So I think that would be something, you know, really good for us to actually look into. If we can have the contract, or, you know, find out the financial implication really. Because really, John, that's what you're saying, that's what it boils down to, is the financial implication if you decide to go down that route. But I think CBC have the funding to pay for those and will supply the salt. And I think that's the right way to go.
Well, I do have strong opinions about this. Looking at the map of where the salt bins are, the publicly available salt bins, most of them are in West Ward. There don't appear to be any in East at all. On my estate, which is not exclusive, my estate is a private estate, a Newbury estate, where we pay full council tax and a private service charge for lighting, tarmacking of roads, etc. Our responsibility. We struggle to find extra money to pay for the gritting of our roads, which are really quite very narrow because they're not built to adoptable standards. So they're already very narrow, and they're difficult to walk on and especially drive on when it's icy. So I would like CBC to help us with the gritting of our roads, but I know that there are many estates like mine, especially in the centre of town, that are in the same position. And I don't think it's fair to put the cost of distributing any of that salt to the town council, because it can be quite costly, like John said. So I would like to see CBC actually assist, especially the new build estates that already have very narrow roads and pay twice the same services. I'd like to see them actually helping us out. There's lots of new estates. Sally lives on one, I live on one, at the Old Ashton School. Matt Neil lives on one as well in the north, you know. There are a lot of estates where we're paying twice.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments or questions on the table? Discuss about this.
For me, it's a consideration of the reducing the risk of the people in terms of, as you're saying, I've seen elderly people falling and trying to support them. You know, it's
dangerous stuff.
You know, at that particular moment, I've walked and I've seen, especially when living where I live, somebody falling and you have to pick them up and put them in a car, which I think it that is provided, then at least we are able to reduce the risk of those people. So just a question, if somebody fell on an icy road, do they actually sue the local authority?
They can.
They can if they want to.
Yeah.
So again, try to reduce that cost of somebody and the impact, because care, without elderly person, I can only imagine a care plan has to be provided. Somebody has to make sure that they provide and support that family with support along that.
It's a good point, because it's not just the conversation, so it's the injury that's been caused that
Yeah.
person, and if they're elderly, the impacts it can
And
have,
the
it can be life
confidence,
changing.
yeah, and the
So,
confidence, yeah.
Can I just add, Chair, part of the conversation we will have to have with Central Bedfordshire Council, if that's the direction of travel for this, is that we need to understand what the risk implications are for you as an authority when it comes to claim for injury. In undertaking sorting and gritting works, if that's where you go with this, then we
Yeah,
need to understand what further risks that might put the council, this council, if any.
Yeah,
If any.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd just say, for my example, is that I live next to Riley Close, which it obviously dips down. It's got quite an incline, and when it snows, there's a lot of elderly people down there. And they just can't get the car out. It's just impossible, and we often dig it out. It's obviously not a priority road from CBC to Grit, which I understand, it's not a major road, but they're sort of carrying on with their lives. And we end up shoveling and trying to do whatever to get them out, but we could really do with the Grit being delivered. I'm not sure where the nearest Grit bin is, so I'll have to look it out, but if the Grit was there, I'm quite willing to distribute it myself. I'm sure that a lot of other residents would as well. So, I don't think, as much as I think it's very important that we think about the safety of our residents, I'm very conscious about the cost falling onto the council. And I do think it should be, salt bins and people helping themselves and neighbourly approach to it to actually get the gritting out and get that done.
Yeah, I agree, but this part right here, whose responsibility would it be?
Well, that's the different thing, isn't it? High Street.
Okay.
and that's
Central Bedfordshire Council.
Yeah.
This footpath,
This footpath outside here, Central.
but they said they're not gonna grit the footpath. So this is where we come in as a town council. We're not talking about Leighton Basil anywhere. We're talking about Dunstable, and we're talking about Dunstable Town Council. How can we take responsibility for those but get paid for it, or make sure we don't have a serious liability while doing it? I think it's now time to lobby the council, to lobby CVC. If it means a motion needs to be passed, if it means, as far as we can take it, this council can agree a motion and can take that to CVC and get the executive talking about it and get the right thing done. If they're not taking charge of their own footpath, then there has to be a political consequence.
I agree, and I completely agree with that. Thank you, Councillor. I think the whole point is as well as what John mentioned before. I think is that they allocate the same ratio of salt to a town like Dunstable as they do for a village.
Yeah.
I mean, how they can work that one, I really don't know. And perhaps part of the lobbying process that we need to do here is to get a bit more of a common sense understanding around that. It's not going to go anywhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this map. I would really like to understand from CBC why there is not one single salt bin in the east of Dunstable, not one. I'd very happily go and access one of those salt bins and I have done it actually. I won't tell you where I got the salt. It wasn't a CBC salt bin, but I did do that. Me and my neighbours did do that, and we did do it. Using salt. So I'd very happily go and access one, but there aren't any in our ward. So I wonder if they might consider redistributing the existing bins, because there are a lot concentrated in the West Ward. There's 2 in South, and then the rest are in North.
Do we know how up to date that map is? But,
This is a live map. This is
because I understand why there'd be more in the west. If you've got lots of hills, it makes more there'd be there. So, rather than redistributing, I think it'd be good to have more.
Yeah, I suspect they've simply had more requests and exceeded
Possibly,
requests in those areas because it's a little bit more hilly and steep.
But flat surface is also
That's the only
slippery.
thing that I can think of.
Yeah.
cost wise, I would say it would make more sense to add more bins for residents access, or to maybe redistribute them if they don't have money to buy more. I'd like to understand why they've been placed in those things.
Okay, so has that given you enough of a decision of what we need to steer on this, John? Because I think we really need to, I think I'm getting the feeling here the status quo is not an option. And
I just need you to formally make a decision on 1.1.2.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So
because I think that's what you're asking officers.
Yeah.
Is to investigate further.
Yeah. So we've got two decisions to make here to continue with the current arrangements of the detailed report, or to provide an indication of what more the council can do, consider these with winter sorting and gritting, and the options, implications. I think what we've talked about is going to be what people want.
So, I would like to request, the officers looking to, the possibility of having town rangers, perhaps using the salt that is provided by Central Bedfordshire Council free of charge, to provide a service where in the particularly icy weather, residents might be able to highlight the same as they do with graffiti or anything else within the town, that an area is particularly icy, and could we please grit it for them, and including, as you pointed out, John, the legal impacts of that, and whether that opens us up to any legal liability with regards to insurance claims. And failing that, if we can just ensure that the council utilises the free salt bag scheme before any money is spent on others.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brennan. That does need to be consideration. We do need to get the 1 tonne back a month, definitely, whatever we do. But it's a very good point you raised there about the town rangers, because they're our eyes and ears on the streets and the roads. So they will be indicators of where these hot spots are.
I think what Councillor Brennan has suggested falls within the scope of 1.1.2, which is that officers provide a further report to committee on the options and implications. And I'll make a particular note about your suggestion around rangers. You'll need to understand the implications associated with the actions.
That's Harley.
Yes, the legal aspect has been raised, and it's really quite simple. If an individual or a council purports to do certain work and it doesn't do it properly, then that can raise an implication for a case. There have been cases where people perhaps clear the snow from outside the front of their house, and then somebody comes along and they feel that it is safe to walk on that particular bit. But if it hasn't been done properly, then they could open themselves to an action. And that's 10 guineas worth of advice.
Added confusion really where that actually lies. If that did happen, whether it's Dunstable Council, CBC, or who's culpable for it. So it's complicated. Madam Mayor.
Sorry, one last question. Going back to my point about if I could access some salt, I'd happily come and pick it up and sprinkle it on my road like a fairy. If all of that salt that CBC were to provide free of charge could be housed here in the car park, and residents could come and pick it up from the car park that would already be gritted anyway, would that be reasonable? Would that, because then the onus is on the individual who's taken the salt.
The idea behind the salt bin scheme is to put the salt as close to the likely problem area. So rather than having it in one location, you spread it out across the town, because you've got the issue of manual handling, carrying, fetching, so on and so forth. So I wouldn't go with a centralised location to collect salt from there.
However, that would put it close to Sally's new estate, my new estate, the new estate next door, Matt's estate.
You would have specific salt bins for specific areas, and I think what you're going to agree is that officers go away and explore that. With Central Bedfordshire.
The one thing I will just say is that if you do that, then you've got the the added problem of who's it going to, if somebody's going to tap in the car and put it in the car, who's going to be taking it, how it's
Yeah.
going to be managed, distributed.
Yeah,
Are you not going to even see any of the sort because someone's picked it all up and
Yeah.
down and
Yeah.
disappeared with it and you're not going to get anything. So you've got to consider.
I don't have a storage facility.
And you know what's going to happen there. And also if bags split open, then it's going to be all over the car park and you've got to mess the clear up. So, yeah, it's not simple as. Okay, well, we've got the steer on that then that we're happy.
I think
Are
you
we
need to make a
going
formal
to
decision.
Formal decision on that, a vote that.
So can I just make a point of correction or notes based on what I said before, clarification, if you will. The obligation of CBC based on this report is that they will grid the road, but not the footpaths.
Based on the information taken from their
Based
website.
on information taken from the footpath. Now, what is the objective of this council in terms of the footpath? Because the responsibility of the main road has been taken based on the information we received from the website. There's no indication based on this conversation that we would be taking responsibility or we are aiming to take responsibility for the footpath. I think that needs to be clear. That's something that should be explored. And what are the consequences of doing it and how, you know, the financial application, I think that needs to be clear in the report that comes back to this council. Because if not, we're just saying, okay, we allocate the salt wherever it is, but there's no responsibility still for this. Our resident that will walk through the different paths in this town, footpath.
Can I ask clarification? Do you mean every footpath in Dunstable? It's a lot of footpaths.
It is a lot of footpath.
I'm not too sure it would be possible for Dunstable Town Council to solve every footpath in Dunstable by the end of an IC period, because
That's correct.
a lot.
But there are going to be hotspots, which means there's a lot of traffic. For example, this stretch right here, you know, there are people that are still going to town. You want the shopping, center to continue with its business. Therefore, that area needs to be salted. So, are we taking responsibility for those where we know that this area is very hilly? Rather than waiting for the residents to do it, are we saying that's something we're going to do? Is the way I pinpoint, or it's just going to be, the salt bin in one area? And then we will take responsibility for the center of Dunstable. Stuff like that, I think needs to be clear. What are we trying to achieve?
That's a decision for you to take in
Okay,
the future based on the facts that we present you in a.
Yeah, I do say, Chair, if you would allow me.
And that report will have a range of options in it.
Yeah, if you allow me, I think I would like to propose then that one of the options that should be looked at is Dunstable Town Council to take the responsibility for caring for the footpath on the stretch of towards the town centre.
But how do we clarify that? How do we clarify which is the town centre and which
Well,
that includes?
Well, we know what the town centre is.
You can't take a decision to actually do that. You could instruct the officers to investigate.
Yes, that's exactly my point. Exactly my point. I think that's the point I'm making. If the officers can investigate how this council can be responsible for, sorting the footpaths, okay, on the stretch towards the town centre. So we're talking middle road coming into Grove Corner. That is what we see as town centre. However, I think the town centre is slightly longer than that towards the High Street, but officially from this point to middle road is what the town centre is. So all of Queens, Queensway, all area there.
So just to clarify on that point then, we're talking about a hybrid decision here about the town council now gritting town centre pavements.
Yeah.
And salt bins being provided for residents.
Oh, yeah.
So
that makes sense.
be clear on that. Councillor Hollett.
Chair, did we not purchase some equipment a while ago for snow clearance on pavements? Do we not already do something in that respect in any event? And if we do, it's a matter of what further requirements we can place upon the council?
We have silk spreading equipment on the back of one of the Ranger vehicles, which is used to grit our own estate. So your parks and open spaces and the key routes through them. As I said, the areas around the market and some parts of the town centre where we're holding events specific to that. What we don't do is wholesale gritting up and down the high street or any other part of Dunstable.
And just a point of
I'm sure I saw a bit, I'm sure I saw us doing something down High Street North on the west side at one time. Maybe the vehicle was just travelling to
It's
do.
possible that very occasionally the Rangers accede to a request, but we don't do it as a matter of routine.
And just a point of clarification now, obviously we've got our new pavement sweeper, haven't we, which we could use for certain types of snow and things like that. Is that, I know we was discussing that when we were talking about.
It's not
the vehicle.
really designed for.
It's not really
snow
designed that,
ice,
right, okay.
No.
Okay.
Okay, is that,
I think,
Yeah.
I think the action recommended is that you're instructing officers to provide a further report to committee on the options and implications, including an option to grit footpaths regularly on the town centre and to consider including the ranger service as parts of that means of doing so.
I think that's fair.